It's 7:12 a.m. The kitchen is still dim, just a grey sheet of winter light pressing against the curtains. You're standing by the counter, hand wrapped around the warm handle of the mug you've just poured. Coffee steam curls upward in a thin ribbon, soft and familiar. You take a breath that tastes like morning. Quiet, unhurried, and reach for your phone to check the time before stepping into the day you think you understand. The sound hits you mid-movement, a sudden vibration, a harsh, shrill emergency alert tone that slices straight through the soft kitchen air. Not a weather warning, not an amber alert. Something lower, rougher, a frequency you've never heard your phone make. It seems to rattle the inside of your ribs. You look down. The screen glows with a message you don't fully take in at first, a string of words breaking the last seconds of normal life. You blink once, twice, trying to make sense of the bold text, even as your hand refuses to lower the mug. Outside, through the thin kitchen window, you hear another sound rise in the distance, a civil defense siren, climbing and falling in slow, mechanical sweeps. A neighbor's dog starts barking. A car door slams. The world is shifting around you, but the kitchen stays still, as if the room hasn't understood yet. You exhale, long, controlled. You set the mug down. The moment is over. Whatever this is, you are already inside it now. Move! The alert is still glowing on your screen when you realize your breathing has paused. You force one inhale, 3 seconds in, 4 seconds out. This is the first discipline. Control the breath, control the mind. The phone vibrates again. The same alert repeated. You don't need to read it twice. The wording was unmistakable. Nuclear threat detected, seek immediate shelter. You don't know the distance, the target, the accuracy of the warning. You don't know if the device has detonated or if one is inbound. You only know the sirens wouldn't sound without reason. Your kitchen feels thinner now, the windows suddenly too exposed. Distance from glass is one of the simplest civil defense rules. Blast waves and thermal radiation turn windows into knives. Shattered glass becomes shrapnel. Even if you're far from ground zero, the pressure wave can travel miles, cracking every pane it encounters. You step back. Not a jump, a measured retreat. 2 slow steps until you're aligned with the hallway. Your heartbeat tries to surge. You push it down with another long exhale through the nose. Breathe. Decide. Your first decision is orientation. Which room is safest? Civil defense guidance is clear. Choose the innermost space, as far from exterior walls as possible. An interior hallway, a closet, a bathroom without windows, anywhere you can add layers between yourself and the outside. Shielding and distance. You repeat the principles in your mind like a checklist. You cross the living room, phone in hand, scanning for pets, people, anything that needs to move with you. Your cat is somewhere and you call once, softly, but there's no time for a search. Loose items stay. Time is not your ally. The siren wails again, longer this time, rising like a question you can't answer. You reach the hallway and feel the shift in sound, slightly muted by the thicker walls. This is better, safer. The air feels denser here, wrapped by drywall on both sides. Still you pause at the threshold, not frozen, calculating. This is when panic tries to take over. You recognize the sensation, breath shortening, thoughts scattering, muscles preparing to run. You push it back with another measured exhale. Your inner voice tightens into a single command, shelter now. You've taken your first steps away from danger. Now you reduce exposure. That begins with choosing your space and committing to it. By the 10-minute mark, your hands have steadied. The hallway feels narrow, but it gives you what you need. Interior location, fewer windows, more walls. You kneel to check the baseboards. Any gap, any draft is a reminder that fallout behaves like dust. Persistent, capable of drifting through openings you wouldn't normally notice. But fallout comes after detonation, not before. You need to remember that the highest danger immediately after a blast is from heat and shockwave, not radiation. The flash can cause burns miles away. The pressure wave follows seconds later. You whisper a grounding phrase, name what is real. Your voice stays low. The siren is outside, I'm inside, the walls are solid, I can act. A decision arises. Do you grab supplies? You have a window of minutes before fallout patterns harden, before the invisible particles begin their slow descent from the mushroom cloud-riding wind currents you cannot predict. Not enough time for a full sweep, but enough for essentials: water, radio, phone charger, flashlight, medications. You move with deliberate speed, not running, not scrambling. Each step is a choice. Each object you select must justify the seconds it costs. The kitchen window glints sharply as you pass, reminding you what you're avoiding. Morning light still pours through the glass, deceptively calm. You fill 2 pitchers at the sink, cap them with plastic wraps secured by rubber bands, and carry a 6-pack of bottled water under one arm. Water is life, not because you'll be here for weeks, but because uncertainty demands preparation. If the water system becomes contaminated, these bottles represent survival measured in days. Your internal voice murmurs, check the door. The front door's deadbolt slides cleanly, locked. Good. You place your palm flat against the wood, feeling its solidity. You hesitate, thinking of your neighbor across the hall. The retired teacher who always says good morning, who sometimes asks you to check her smoke detector. You picture her face. You think of knocking, warning her, bringing her into your shelter. But opening that door would cost you precious shielding and time. This conflict between helping and surviving sits heavy in your chest like a stone. You make the calculation that civil defense manuals never quite prepare you for. You cannot save everyone, you can only control your own actions. You return to the hallway with your supplies and lay them out in a neat grid on the floor, creating order amid fear. Order calms the nervous system. The act of arranging objects becomes a strategy in itself. It transforms chaos into structure, panic into process. You sit. Your pulse slows. You count your breaths until the rhythm feels natural again. You've begun transforming space into shelter. Now you reinforce it against what may be coming. Somewhere in the distance, a faint thud rolls through the air, too low to identify clearly. It might be a door slamming, a delivery truck hitting a pothole, an engine backfiring, or something far worse. You refuse to speculate. Speculation is mental collapse dressed as logic. It opens the door to imagination, and imagination in crisis becomes a weapon against yourself. You check your phone again, no new alerts, no confirmation, no map showing impact zones or wind patterns, no specific target identified. Civil defense protocols caution against relying on digital information in the first critical minutes. Cellular grids can overload or fail entirely under the sudden crush of millions of people trying to call loved ones, seeking answers, demanding explanations that don't yet exist. Information blackout is normal during the initial chaos, not a sign of doom. The silence means the system is overwhelmed, not that the world has ended. You focus on actionable steps, the kind detailed in emergency preparedness, guides you've glanced at but never truly studied. The hallway door leading to the living room has a gap along the bottom, perhaps half an inch of space, where light leaks through. You grab a towel from the bathroom, fold it twice lengthwise, press it firmly into the seam. The fibers scratch against your knuckles. Rough, clean, familiar. You inhale the faint scent of detergent, a smell so ordinary it almost makes you forget why you're doing this. These sensory anchors keep you grounded. They remind you that normal life existed an hour ago and may exist again. Your mind whispers, "Wait." But you know waiting without preparation is just fear in disguise, paralysis masquerading as patience. So you inspect each edge of the doorframe with methodical attention. Light leaking through means air leaking through. Air means particles can enter. You line a second towel along the top edge where the door doesn't quite meet the frame, pressing it flat with your palms until the brightness dims noticeably. The hallway darkens by several shades. Good. A surge of guilt hits unexpectedly. You picture your neighbor knocking, asking to be let in, her voice muffled by the sealed door. You think of her face, her voice, her small dog. You think of your responsibility to yourself. You put your palm against the sealed door anyway, feeling the cool wood beneath your skin. A symbolic gesture, nothing more, but symbolic gestures have value under stress. They acknowledge the cost of survival. They recognize that staying alive sometimes means making choices that hollow you out. You press down on the impulse to unseal the door and call out to the hallway. Panic wants motion. Discipline wants control. Panic wants to do something, anything, to feel heroic. Discipline understands that survival often looks like stillness. Stay, you whisper to yourself. You obey. Fallout is not immediate. It rises with the fireball, travels with wind patterns shaped by altitude and weather systems, and begins descending 10 to 20 minutes after detonation, depending on distance from ground zero. Your goal is simple: maximize shielding before that invisible rain begins. Walls, floors, and closed doors all reduce exposure by absorbing radiation. You're not eliminating danger, you're reducing dose. Every barrier matters, every minute inside counts. You've chosen your side of the threshold. Now you must control the environment you occupy and trust that you made the right decision. 40 minutes after the alert, your hallway has changed character entirely. The familiar beige walls feel heavier, almost thickened by purpose. You've sealed 2 gaps with towels, arranged your supplies in careful rows, and chosen a spot to sit, back against the interior wall, knees bent, radio beside you, within easy reach. You try the radio again, turning the dial slowly through the AM band. Static. A hiss that flickers like distant wind through dry grass. You adjust the dial in slow increments, pausing at each frequency marker. Nothing. Not yet. Broadcasting infrastructure may be damaged, or stations may have evacuated, or the electromagnetic pulse from a high-altitude detonation may have disrupted electronics. You don't know. The not knowing is its own weight. Your throat feels dry. Not from thirst, from awareness, from the constant, shallow breathing that accompanies fear. You reach for a water bottle, twist it open with a faint crack of the safety seal, then stop yourself. Rationing begins now. 1 bottle per day, if possible, stretched across 24 hours. You write the date on the cap with a marker from your supply pile so you don't lose track. This small act of organization steadies your breath more than the water would. The hallway air feels slightly warmer now, trapped within the sealed space. Not dangerous, just different. The normal circulation has stopped. You wipe a thin layer of moisture from your forehead with the sleeve of your shirt. The fabric is soft, worn from many washings. Another sensory anchor. Temperature changes are expected when sealing rooms. Airflow reduction is part of protection. You're trading comfort for safety. Your thoughts flicker again to the outside world, your street, the morning routines interrupted mid-motion, neighbors you didn't warn, strangers whose names you'll never know, making the same desperate calculations. You feel a tug, curiosity mixed with dread. The urge to open the door grows sharper, more insistent. What's happening out there? Has anything changed? Is anyone coming to help? You press your fingertips hard against the carpet. Focus on texture, rough, synthetic fibers, firm padding beneath, real. This is when curiosity becomes a threat. You remind yourself in a whisper, stay sheltered, wait for information. Your shelter is holding. Now you must turn it into a system, not just a space or a routine you can maintain for hours. At 1 hour, your body wants movement. This is normal. Adrenaline drains fast, leaving restlessness behind like sediment. But motion doesn't mean abandoning shelter. It means deliberate tasks that keep your mind occupied and your muscles from stiffening. You inspect your supplies again, not from fear, but to reinforce familiarity with your resources. Knowledge of your environment reduces panic. You run your hand over the plastic bottles, counting them by touch. 6. The flashlight's metal casing, cool and solid. The radio's smooth edge with its ridged dial. A new sound interrupts the silence. A distant siren shift, a change in the pattern of oscillation. Could be wind affecting how the sound travels, could be the civil defense system cycling through different alert stages. Doesn't matter. The sound exists outside your control. You label the thought unknown. Labeling reduces its power. Named things become smaller, more manageable. You take the flashlight and test it once, cupping your other hand over the beam to preserve darkness in case the power fails later. 1 click. Clean white light splashes against your palm. You turn it off immediately. Conserving batteries is survival. You don't know how long you'll need that light. A pang of guilt rises again, sharper this time. You think of your family 60 miles away, wondering if they received the same alert, if they're sheltering, if they even know what's happening. You think of the silence on your phone, the texts that won't send, the calls that won't connect. The network is overloaded or damaged. Texting might fail, calling certainly will. The best you can do is leave one short message. Sheltering, safe for now. Love you. You hit send. The message sits there with a small spinning wheel icon, trying and trying. It might never reach them, but composing those words gives shape to hope. It creates a small bridge across the silence. You sit back against the wall, crossing your arms to contain the fine tremor running through your shoulders. You breathe slow, steady, counting the rhythm. You feel the tension change from sharp and jagged to dull and heavy. You've survived the first hour not through luck, but because you acted with discipline instead of reacting with instinct. That distinction may be what keeps you alive. Your next task is insulation, physical and mental. Build the routine that will carry you through the long waiting ahead. By the second hour, the dust you fear, the fallout, may be arriving outside depending on where the blast occurred and which way the wind is blowing. You still don't know the distance to ground zero, but you trust the principle burned into every civil defense manual. Stay inside, stay shielded, stay sealed. You check the towels again, your fingers trace the edges, pressing them firmly into the door seams. The fibers feel damp where your hands sweated earlier during the initial setup. You straighten them anyway, ensuring no gaps have opened. Your mind tries to form images of the outside world. Streets filled with ash, people running, buildings damaged. You stop it. Mental imagery can trigger panic faster than any real noise. You redirect your thoughts toward order, time intervals, breathing cycles, hydration schedule. Structure over imagination. You take a controlled sip of water, half a mouthful, enough to wet your throat, and then set the bottle aside with deliberate care. You mark the time on a small notepad you found in your supply pile. 9:12 a.m. Water check. Writing makes it real, and reality creates stability. The act of recording time gives you dominion over it. The radio crackles briefly. You freeze, hand hovering over the dial, barely breathing. A faint voice. No. Just static, shifting with some kind of interference, maybe atmospheric conditions changing. Still, it reminds you that information will return eventually. Radio waves travel through chaos. Radios survive when networks fail. This is why emergency kits always include them. A thump sounds above you, maybe an apartment neighbor, moving furniture, maybe something falling, maybe someone else sealing their own shelter. You remind yourself, structural noises do not equal danger. Buildings settle, people move, life continues in pockets. Your internal voice whispers, "Hold." You repeat it aloud, testing the word in the stale air, "Hold." The discipline is settling into your bones now, not comfort, control. You have sealed your shelter. Now you must anchor your mind against the hours ahead. By hour 3, your breathing has steadied into a pattern that no longer requires conscious effort. This is what discipline feels like. Not the absence of fear, but controlled response to it. Fear remains, but it has lost its sharp edges. The hallway is dimmer now. The light from the living room has faded as the sun shifts position outside, moving across a sky you cannot see. You turn on the flashlight for exactly 2 seconds, sweep the beam across the floor to confirm your surroundings and shut it off. Confirming your environment reduces fear's foothold. The known is always less threatening than the imagined. A new psychological challenge emerges, predictable but powerful, the urge to look outside. Curiosity feels like a physical itch behind your ribs, a pressure that builds with each passing minute. What's happening out there? Is the sky dark? Are people in the streets? Is there visible damage? But you know this rule with absolute certainty. Fallout is invisible. Radiation does not reveal itself to the naked eye. Looking outside gains you nothing except exposure. The window would show you a normal street, perhaps, or a deserted one, and you would learn nothing about the true danger. The particles descending through the air cannot be seen. You sit, cross-legged, and perform a grounding routine taught in psychological crisis training. Name 3 sounds: the hum of the refrigerator behind 2 closed doors, faint and steady. The static of the radio, a white noise constant. Your own breath, measured and deliberate. Name 3 textures: carpet fibers under your hand, synthetic and rough, cool metal of the flashlight barrel, the rough cotton of the towel pressed against the door. Name 3 temperatures: the room's warmth, slightly stifling, the bottle's coolness against your palm, your phone, slightly hot from earlier use, now cooling on the floor. This technique keeps your mind tethered to what you can directly sense, not what you fear or imagine. It pulls you out of speculation and back into the present moment, the only moment where you have any control. The clock ticks softly somewhere behind the walls, a subtle rhythm, proof of continuity. You lean into the sound. Time is not your enemy. It is the evidence that you are still here, still breathing, still capable of action. The urge to act recklessly grows now. You counter it with structure, with routine, with the small rituals of survival. The silence deepens as the afternoon arrives, not total silence. The world is rarely that clean, but a heavy, insulated quiet shaped by sealed doors and thick walls. You adjust your sitting position and feel the stiffness beginning in your legs, the dull ache in your lower back. You stretch one calf gently, extending the muscle slow enough to avoid dizziness. Movement is allowed, exposure is not. Your radio crackles again. This time, a burst of fragmented sound breaks through. A syllable, maybe 2, human voice compressed by static. You turn the dial a 1/4 inch clockwise. The static shifts in pitch but holds. You whisper soon to yourself, a promise, a hope. Your phone battery sits at 87%, but you switch to low power mode anyway. You turn off Wi-Fi, disable Bluetooth, close background apps. Communications may not return for hours or even days. Energy must last as long as possible. The phone is a lifeline, even in silence. A sharp knock echoes from somewhere. Maybe your building's main entrance, maybe a nearby apartment, maybe something else entirely. Your heart lurches, you freeze, every muscle tensed, listening with complete attention. No second knock, no voice calling out, just that single sound and then nothing. This is another moral weight you must carry. You imagine someone seeking help, a neighbor wandering the halls, confused, frightened, looking for any open door. But opening your door now and compromising the shielding you've built risks both their life and yours. Civil defense doctrine is unequivocal on this point. Stay sealed during the highest radiation period. Exposure to fallout, even briefly, can deliver a dangerous dose. The guilt is real, sharp, almost physical, but the physics are not negotiable. You cannot help someone by dying alongside them. Your breathing tightens. You close your eyes and count with deliberate precision. In for 3, hold for 1, out for 4. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The fear softens but does not vanish. You accept that. Fear is allowed. Fear is rational. Panic is not. You've controlled your shelter space. Now you must control your reactions, the interior landscape where fear lives. By hour 6, fatigue begins to settle deep in your shoulders and lower back. You shift your weight slowly, mindful not to disturb the towels sealing the door. You run your fingertips along the seam again, confirming they're still snug against the frame. The air feels stale now, noticeably thicker. This is normal, sealed environments trap warmth and exhaled carbon dioxide. You focus on slow, measured breathing to reduce oxygen consumption. Not because it will run out in any dangerous sense, but because quiet breathing helps quiet the mind. Calm breath creates calm thought. You check the radio every 15 minutes by the clock on your phone. Still static. Still that distant hiss, like sand blowing across concrete, like wind through a tunnel. Hunger nudges your stomach, a small, cramping sensation. You resist the urge to open a snack from your limited supplies. Food can wait. Water cannot. Human beings can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. You ration the water in small sips, spacing them with deliberate discipline. 24 hours of sheltering requires a hydration schedule more than a meal schedule. You stare at the notepad where you've written timestamps and brief observations. 7:12 alert received. 7:20 shelter sealed. 8 oak supplies checked. 9:12 water. 10:30 radio check. 12 HUD radio check. 1:12 water. The handwriting steadies as the hours progress, a visible transformation of fear into function, chaos into order. Your thoughts drift again, to people you love, to news you can't access, to scenarios you can't confirm. You bring your focus back by touching the marked water bottle, the one labeled Day 1 in black marker. A physical reminder of time passing, a measure of control in a situation where control is scarce. You've entered the long middle. Endurance is now your primary task. Not heroic action, not dramatic rescue, just the ability to sit still, to wait, to breathe. By hour 9, your mind plays tricks. You think you hear voices, conversations, someone calling your name. You pause, listening hard with your ear near the door, but it's just the radio shifting tones as you adjust the dial unconsciously. A wave of claustrophobia rolls through your chest like a physical force. The walls feel closer, the air feels heavier. You stretch your fingers wide, then your toes slow and steady motions to remind your body it has space. You lean your head against the wall. The drywall is cool, a relief against the rising tension in your temples. This is when inner doubts sharpen into questions that feel urgent. What if the worst is outside and you're hiding from nothing? What if you're sheltering for a threat that never materialized? What if you've sealed yourself in for no reason while life continues normally just beyond your door? You counter the thought with what you know. Fallout peaks early. Staying inside now is survival, not superstition. Even if the danger proves less than feared, caution costs you only time. Exposure could cost you everything. You create a small routine to occupy your mind and hands. Check the towels for gaps. Check the water bottle level and mark it. Mark the time on the notepad. Adjust the radio dial slowly through the frequencies. Breathe. Count to 10. Breathe again. The routine becomes a lifeline, not because it changes the outside world, but because it organizes your inner one. Structure defeats chaos, pattern defeats panic. A distant rumble vibrates through the floor, deep and prolonged. Could be thunder from a gathering storm, could be infrastructure failing somewhere in the city, could be nothing more than a heavy truck on a distant road. You acknowledge uncertainty without letting it spiral into catastrophe. Label it again. Unknown. You sit back down, crossing your legs, leaning against your pack of bottled water. The plastic crackles softly under your weight, a strangely comforting noise. Proof of supplies, proof of planning, proof that you prepared for this moment, even though you never truly believed it would come. Night approaches outside, though you can barely tell in the sealed darkness of the hallway. Discipline must hold even as exhaustion grows stronger. By midnight, the world outside feels impossibly far away, separated from you by more than walls and towels. The darkness within your sealed hallway is nearly absolute. You flick the flashlight once more, briefly illuminating your surroundings in harsh white light. Towels secure, supplies intact, notepad at your side, everything exactly where you placed it hours ago. Your muscles tremble from fatigue, a fine shaking in your legs and hands. But sleep is dangerous now, not because of radiation, but because losing awareness can erode discipline. You might wake disoriented, panicked, liable to make poor decisions. You allow yourself brief micro-rests instead. 5 minutes with eyes closed, then a check-in with your environment. Your radio finally catches a faint transmission, actual words dissolving in and out of static. You strain to hear, holding your breath, turning your head to aim your ear at the speaker. Shelter. Remain. Updates. The voice is thin, warped by distance or damaged equipment, but it exists. That is enough. Your chest loosens slightly. Not safety. Connection. Proof that someone is broadcasting, that infrastructure survives, that you are not completely alone. You drink another controlled sip of water. You mark the time. 12:15 a.m. Your handwriting is smaller now, cramped, tired, but still precise. The discipline holds. You reflect on the choices you made in those first crucial minutes, sealing the door, ignoring the knocks, resisting the urge to look outside. Each decision felt small at the time, almost arbitrary. Together they carried the weight of survival. Together, they are the reason you're still here, still breathing, still capable of thought. This is survival, you whisper into the darkness. Not heroism, just discipline. You lean your head back against the wall. The air is warm, almost stuffy. Your eyelids drift downward. Wait. Breathe. Hold. You've endured the first half of the critical period. Dawn will bring new information, new decisions. Stay with the routine. Trust the process. The first hint of grey filters through the towel seams, barely perceptible but undeniable. Not much light, but enough to know time has moved forward. that the sun has risen on a world you haven't seen in nearly 17 hours. You blink slowly, stretching your back with cautious movements that reveal new aches in muscles you didn't know you'd tensed. You check the radio again and catch a clearer signal this time, still punctuated with bursts of static, but coherent enough to understand. Shelter-in-place protocols remain in effect. Continue to avoid outdoor exposure. Updates will be provided as information becomes available. You exhale, long, controlled. The breath carries something you haven't felt since yesterday morning. Fallout levels, according to every civil defense guideline you've ever encountered, drop significantly after the first 12 to 24 hours. The rule of thumb is simple. For every factor of 7 in time, radiation levels decrease by a factor of 10. Not safe, not harmless, but reduced to levels that may be survivable with continued precautions. You hold on to that knowledge like a rope. Your stomach growls, a sound absurdly loud in the sealed hallway. You allow yourself a small snack, a granola bar broken carefully in half. You eat one half now, save the other for later. You choose slowly, deliberately, savoring the taste more than the calories. Eating is psychological as much as physical now. It reminds your body that life continues. The air feels cooler again. Temperature shifts inside sealed rooms happen with outside temperature changes, heat escaping through walls despite your barriers. You pull a sweater around your shoulders, the fabric soft and grounding against your skin. A new internal conflict rises, stronger now with the arrival of dawn. The urge to crack the door open just an inch, just enough to check the hallway, to listen for other people, to see if the world still exists. But you know the rule. Avoid opening until official guidance confirms safety or until contamination levels naturally subside to safer ranges. You put your hand on the doorknob anyway, feeling its cold metal under your palm. Not turning it, just acknowledging the impulse, naming it, letting it exist without acting on it. Not yet, you whisper into the dim hallway. Not without confirmation. Your body shivers once, not from cold, from the weight of continued restraint, from the knowledge that the hardest test of discipline comes not at the beginning, but here, when hope returns and patience wears thin. Morning is coming. More information will follow. Don't break your discipline this close to stability. At the 24-hour mark, the hallway feels different. Not safer, just familiar. The fear hasn't left you, but it has changed shape. It sits quieter now, like a background hum, instead of a sharp blade pressed against your ribs. Light seeps gently around the towels, pale and grey, the colour of dawn filtered through whatever has changed outside. You allow yourself to sit closer to the door, observing the muted glow without touching the seal. You don't peek, you don't unseal, but you observe, and observation feels like a small victory. Your radio finally delivers a clearer broadcast. A steady voice, official and measured. Shelter in place remains recommended for most areas. Radiation levels are decreasing in many areas, but remain elevated. Emergency services are beginning coordinated response. Remain indoors until further notice. Do not attempt to travel. Avoid consuming tap water until testing confirms safety. Further updates will be broadcast hourly. You close your eyes. For the first time since yesterday morning, relief doesn't feel dangerous. It feels earned. You take out your water bottle, the one marked Day 1 in black marker, the label now smudged by your handling. There's still some left, perhaps a quarter of the bottle. You tilt it, watching the water shift and catch the dim light. You've rationed well, you've endured the mathematics of survival. You think of everything you didn't know and still don't know, in the distance to the blast, The scope of the threat, the fate of the city beyond your walls, the condition of your neighbors, the status of your family 60 miles away. You may not learn those answers for days. The world may look completely different than it did yesterday morning, or it may look nearly the same with the damage hidden in invisible contamination. But the essential truth stands regardless. You survived the most dangerous hours because you acted with discipline, not certainty. You breathe in slowly. The air tastes faintly stale but safe enough for now. You stretch your legs forward, feeling the carpet under your heels, the simple sensation of your body occupying space. The day has begun. Outside, whatever waits will reveal itself in time. You place the Day 1 water bottle beside the radio, its label smudged but readable, the plastic slightly compressed from your grip. As the radio static fades into a clearer voice beginning the hourly update, the morning light filters softly through the sealed door, painting a thin line across the carpet. You don't unseal the room yet. The towels stay pressed against the gaps. The discipline holds. You just listen to the quiet, to the measured voice from the radio explaining what comes next, to your own breath settling into something steady and sure. The bottle sits upright, half full, catching the thin stripe of light. No triumph, just endurance. A small, grounded reminder that you made it through the first day,